Shots from the Hip presents Sports Movie Reviews. Here are Jason and Oz.
All right.
Okay.
We have a doozy for you guys this week.
Yeah.
Oz,
All
why
right.
don't you lead us into this?
Let's talk about the 2014 film United Passions. A look at the history of that great organization, that great pristine organization known as FIFA. And let me tell you this, if you're looking for a hard-hitting, investigative, thorough look at the history of a great organization, this is not the movie for you. Instead, what it is more or less a propaganda piece for FIFA. This movie stars Gérard Depardieu, Tim Roth, and Sam Neill, all of whom are well, I guess Depardieu is playing a Frenchman, but any American actors in this movie are probably not playing American individuals. Ostensibly based on a true story, but this has all the worst elements of based on a true story that you could possibly imagine. United Passions ends up being a very bad, very boring, essentially propaganda piece for the FIFA organization. FIFA bankrolled this movie so you can see what comes of it. And really only good for a laugh. I was looking this morning before coming on to this show, some of the reviews of this film. Here's the cumulative Rotten Tomatoes critical review. Aside from the heat, the insipidly bland deliverance is apparently uninspired and traditionally ill-conceived. Let's see. The Guardian newspaper said, United Passions is a disgrace. It's less than a movie than preposterous semi-hagiography, more appropriate for Scientology. Let's see. Metacritic via, I believe, the New York Times notes that United Passions is one of the most unwatchable films in recent memory. A dishonest bit of corporate suite sanitizing that's no good even for laughs. Now, I would question that because I think it was great for laughs. United Passions is often forgotten as the film was a colossal failure. This is from IMDb. So you get the point. The hilarious thing is this. I wanted to look this up. Recently, we had the release in North American and really worldwide cinemas about Supergirl. Right? Have you seen Supergirl yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Of course, this film is already being labeled as a colossal failure. This film made $21 million in its first weekend. You want to guess how much United Passions made on its first weekend?
I'll guess 10.
Okay. 10 million?
10
okay.
million.
Are you ready for this? $914. Okay. Like I said at the top of this show, if there is any one word that FIFA is associated with, especially in Europe, it is the word corruption. And you will notice that during this film, which covers what? Okay, so the film was released in 2014. So it covers about 75 years of history. Not once is the word corruption used in the film. Not once. Not once do they say corrupt. Not once do they say corruption. They portray several of the presidents of the FIFA organization, from Jules Rimet back in the early days, played by Depardieu, all the way through to Sepp Blatter, who was still the FIFA president in the teens, played by Tim Roth. And it's, FIFA's problems are always somebody else's fault. Whether it's the US media, whether it's the sponsors, whether it's a few bad apples in the organization, always. And it's funny because in the movie, they can't avoid saying that, despite the fact that this is a hundreds of millions and ultimately multi-billion-dollar organization, that the money keeps disappearing. And never once do they actually point the finger at what everybody knows is the problem. Right from the go, this is a hilarious movie. Of course, there's a very common expression in American sports. Nobody goes to see these games for the umpires, right? In the case of baseball, nobody goes to see these movies for the general managers or the front office. Well, United Passions would have us believe that literally billions of people in the world love soccer because of the governing organization. I mean, this movie starts off with this, cheesy sort of time travel soccer match being played by kids. And literally the first line of dialogue we hear is, "Our sport is loved by millions worldwide, and it needs organization." So like, what? And so ultimately the entire movie is basically FIFA's attempt to prove that the only reason why soccer is so popular and so awesome is because of FIFA, which is absolutely ridiculous supposition. Many of the reviews point out the bad acting, the bad direction, the bad script. And I got to say, yeah, they're basically right on all accounts. I don't know. What were your impressions of this movie, Jason?
This is probably going to surprise you, but I don't think this movie deserved the low ratings and reviews it has gotten. Was it?
You don't think
was it? Was it a very not a zero? Was it a very slow and very discussion-heavy movie? Yes. Mm-hmm. Was it lacking good actual soccer scenes? Also,
yeah.
Yes. But really, that was kind of the whole point of the movie. The whole point of the movie was to show how FIFA came to be and the growth of the organization. It showed the power of sport to unite people across cultures. It showed the vision required to build an international sporting organization. It showed the growth of football from a largely European pastime into the world's most popular sport. And it showed the challenges of balancing politics, business, and sports on a global scale. Now, the actual style of the movie and the acting and everything, yeah, it was cheesy. And yeah, the style was a little odd. But I find that happens a lot with European-based movies. I find European acting, like even in the Damn United and movies like that, the acting is not the best. And the way the screenplay is done and the camera work isn't always the best either. But I find that's typical with European movies. I don't know. What do you think?
Wow. Well, I couldn't disagree with you more about Damn United. I thought the acting was outstanding in that movie. But okay, come on now, though. Nothing is earned in this movie. Like, okay, so we're supposed to believe that in 1930, that Jules Rimet and his extremely ahead of her time daughter are anti-racism. Like, this is all a big goal about racism. And it has that. I mean, ultimately, one of the through lines in this movie is all about the development of soccer in Africa. But the whole thing is tell, don't show, right? The whole thing is a bunch of white guys in suits going, yeah, we're going to improve the African game. And then it ends with this thing where they award the 2010 World Cup hosting privileges to South Africa, But there's one point in the film when Sam Neill literally is finishing a discussion about, we're not going to allow South Africa to compete in FIFA events, until they get rid of the apartheid system. hangs up the phone, and then talks about how, Argentina must compete, despite the fact that Pinochet is killing like millions of his own people. You know, it absolutely makes no sense. FIFA is supposed to be this white knight, literally, saving the world from corruption in football, saving the world from politics messing with sport. And yet right there, they just showed you that this is completely arbitrary. That we're going to just make these decisions. And look, okay, one of the ironies I thought about this film was, for example, they're saying politics has no business in sport. Well, guess what? You know what country has been banned from competing, and I believe it's the last 3 World Cups, not to mention all international competitions? Russia, for no reason other than the fact that most Europeans are paranoid as hell about Russia. This ban on Russia happened way before, Ukraine, happened way before stuff like this. Basically Russia was banned for no reason than besides the Europeans don't like Pinochet. But apparently Trump calling up and saying, screw the rules is fine. That's fine, right? Why? Because the U.S. is hosting the World Cup. And that's one thing that wasn't discussed in this movie. It's funny, the director of this film was interviewed after the release of this film saying, why the hell did you do this movie? And the director excused himself by saying, well, I tried to look at this ironically, and I hope that some of that irony came out. Well, you have this bit in the very beginning where Uruguay wins the hosting rights before the bidding even begins, by the way. And they're already promised the hosting rights to the 1930 World Cup, the first one that ever goes off. And there's a bit where the president of the Uruguay Football Federation tells Jules Rimet that, oh, yes, we're going to arrange everything. We're going to arrange, the stadiums, the hotels, even the referees. And then Rimet says, and you promise me that everything will be fair, right? And the Uruguayan president says, of course. And guess who wins the first World Cup? Uruguay. Come on now. This has been a theme through much of FIFA's tenure, is that, well, home team's going to win. And I mean, of course, in recent years, when South Africa is hosting, when Japan, Korea is hosting, when the USA is hosting, of course, you can't fix it so much that these teams are going to win the World Cup.
USA and Canada.
Right. Well, yeah, this time. But I was thinking more of 1994.
Oh,
because that also played a part in this movie. And also in the O.J. Simpson movie that we watched, June 12th, 1994, was also part of that movie. It was a big deal for FIFA, for USA to host the World Cup. But, in all others, look, Brazil hosts the World Cup in, I think it was 2002, I want to say. Do you really think they're going to lose? Here's a hint. No, they're not. They're not going to lose. This is the reason why. I mean, if this cup had been hosted in Korea, Baldugan never would have had his red card rescinded. He would not have been playing for Team USA in the round of 16. He wouldn't. But again, this is FIFA. This is FIFA. And to do a FIFA movie without discussing the massive corruption that has gone on in this sport more than offhandedly is disingenuous. It's a complete lie. And you can understand why people hated this movie. There's a real movie out there that tells the same story, but tells it honestly, But of course, nobody has the guts to do this because FIFA would probably try to sue the hell out of them, But I mean, That's a good movie. actually showing the corruption and showing
would you expect a movie that's paid for by FIFA to actually
No, of course not.
throw FIFA under the bus?
Of course not. But that's the thing. It's just like, what made them think that this was going to work? What made them think that this was going to work? I mean, honestly, why would they actually think anybody was going to believe this stuff? Especially since it was released during an actual corruption trial. FIFA was actually under a massive international investigation about some of this flim-flam, about some of these scams that they had been perpetuating for, again, 75 years, 85 years at that point, actually. It's just like, I don't know what made them think this would work. And even if you can see the good points in this movie, yeah, this definitely deserves to be ranked among the worst movies of all time. It's got to be the worst sports movie I've ever seen.
Here's another thing that I also questioned while watching this movie.
Oh, God.
It's another case of, it's based on true events. Mm-hmm. Which events in this movie are true? I wish we knew that.
Well, they said right at the beginning that there's the little caption right at the top, which says that, basically the incidents and the dialogues in this movie are fictional.
And every movie actually says that at the end credits, usually.
Right.
So
so that they were just cautioning people, this is going to be 99% BS. And that was the thing, is that even the soccer parts were shown confusingly enough that, you had no idea what was going on. I mean, sometimes they're talking about European championships. Sometimes they're talking about qualifiers for the World Cup, and you don't even know what's going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, for somebody who doesn't know a lot about international soccer, you're not going to have an idea of this. Personally, as a Hungarian resident, I was really sad that they just glossed right over the 1954 World Cup, which was a very big deal because that one featured Hungary, which was, the great communist soccer power, versus Western Germany, which was seen as the underdog in this game. And that particular World Cup was portrayed as, this commie world versus free world kind of matchup. And, the mighty Hungarian team, the mighty Magyars is what they called them, with Ferenc Puskás, who was the greatest player in the world, against those plucky West German underdogs. They just glossed right through that. I think at the end, when you get the sort of montage of the great players of the past, you get a glimpse of Puskás in the 50s in there. But that's it. There's nothing about that at all. And I mean, again, like I think if you're going to do the proper FIFA movie, it should be about 50% the machinations and about 50% what happens on the pitch. That would have been a nice show, because again, you could have even portrayed it positively in that case, because yes, despite the fact that FIFA is corrupt as hell and there's all this manipulation going on, the World Cup is still awesome. And there have been fantastic sports moments in these great cups. There have been worldwide celebrities. I mean, here's Pelé. Pelé, who was the biggest sports star in the world when he was at his peak in the 60s and 70s, gets a mention in this movie. No, because it's much more important to show Sepp Blatter, selling sponsorship to Adidas. That's much more important than, Brazil winning 3 World Cups. Come on now. I mean, how to make a movie about soccer that's not actually about soccer? It's just like, Jesus. So, yeah. I mean, it's funny because usually in a situation like this, you would say, that's an hour and a half of my life I will never get back. Wow.
Hour and 49 minutes.
Yeah, I've seen, that's 2 hours of my life I will never get back. But I've seen this movie twice. And I got to say, I don't regret it. You know, it's really a good one if you really want to get angry.
If it was so terrible, why'd you see it twice?
Oh man, because it's so terrible. It's a picture of terribleness. It's great. You know, I'm a sucker for bad movies. You know, I am. I love seeing, I mean, not just like a mediocre movie. I mean, a bad movie, right? It's so instructional. What could have saved this movie? How could this have been a good movie? I always ask myself, you know, was there a good movie here? Was there any potential? And it's pretty hard to believe that there was any chance that this could be a good movie. But it might have been helped, for example, showing a lot more soccer. You know, instead of telling us African soccer is developing, instead of telling us that women's soccer is growing, show us. You know, show us. It's one of the primary rules they teach you in script writing classes. Show, don't tell. And this movie was a lot of tell. And it was a lot of disingenuous telling. It was a lot of lies. It was a lot of propaganda. You know, and that's the thing.
One of these days, we're going to start a production company and we're going to recreate all these movies properly the way they should be.
Sure. Yeah, it would be great. It would be great. I mean, we've seen some, in my estimation, we've seen some really great movies. Again, I talked about this recently. The June 1994 documentary is one of the best sports documentaries I've ever seen. The technique is incredible. We've seen some other, I mean, I love White Men Can't Jump. For my money, that's got some of the best dialogue in a sports movie ever. You know, it's one of the funniest sports movies ever made. Easily. I mean, people talk about Slapshot, but wow, White Men Can't Jump. Now that's a great movie.
I have a suggestion for next week.
Okay.
Are
we going to spoil it? Are we going to spoil it? Are we going to say it right now? Or
no, it's not. I'll tell you, but we won't tell the hipsters right yet.
Right. So let's sign off because I can't wait to hear it.